Hello and welcome everyone. Today I'm going to be making a video on combat width and reinforcement width for Hoi 4. And I'm sure you've all seen the video by Feedback or Feedback Gaming, Feedback IRL, whatever his handle is these days. And he obviously plays Hoi 4, and he made a video recently talking about a spreadsheet or a PDF that was talking about the best combat widths for the game, and basically 10, 15, 27, and maybe like 41, 42 came up, and 44 being the best combat width. And that's because the person in the video took an average of all the tiles in the world and basically put those combat widths in, and you could see their multipliers of penalties for each combat width, right? And there was some clear standouts of things being better than others. Noticeably, the 40 width, the old meta one, was not good, or it suffered a lot of penalties on average. But I kind of wanted to talk about what I personally do. So we're on the tutorial nation, Italy, also the nation I play the most, my favorite nation in Hoi 4. But anyway, I digress. The whole point of this video basically is to agree with some parts and disagree with other parts. And the reason being is it takes an average of everything, right? That includes, mountain tiles, urban tiles, and everything. And as you can see up on the screen, there's the combat widths of stuff. And basically what I like to do personally in the bottom area, what I like to do personally is, if I'm playing the Axis, which I pretty much always do, I don't play too much allies, but even the allies can apply this, right? Because there's a lot of forests and plains in Europe for when you're D-Daying and stuff like that, right? So in practice, it's the same. And, Japan is different because they do jungles, lots of mountains in China, stuff like that. So this isn't super applicable to Japan. I will say that. Obviously, the video that he was talking about was an average of everything on the planet. Every tile, put into, a pool basically to decide what is the best catch-all units. So at the end of the day, basically, there were a couple standouts. 10 being obviously the best because it fits into everything, right? Not many nations in this game can spam out the 10 widths with good support units. They just don't have the industry to do it, and he mentioned this in the video. Or the other issue is, well, what happens if it doesn't reinforce in time and, a bigger combat width unit demolishes them one by one, And so something I've noticed in multiplayer games lately since the update, there's a lot of things happening called reinforced meming. And if you don't know what reinforced meming it is basically when you have multiple units on a tile defending. For example, we'll say this tile, Istra. And one of them or two of them or three of them, however many are in the battle, all have their organization tick down at the same rate. And then they all break within a short time period of each other, and therefore they cannot be replaced with the reinforcement, because reinforcement is random and it's a % chance to get in. And then you also have to fit into something called the reinforcement width, which every tile has a different combat width and different reinforcement width now, which is really interesting. So basically, the whole point of this is to talk about Europe, right? Because that's usually what decides most games. Either Germany beats Russia and the Axis win, or Germany gets stuck in Russia and he gets D-Dayed, and the D-Day is strong enough that the Axis throw in the towel. Those are usually the two win conditions of a Hearts of Iron 4 multiplayer game. And as you can see, France is all plains with some forest, right? There's very few mountains. Like, there are mountains here, but like if you're getting stuck here, it doesn't matter. You've already taken all the meat and potatoes of France, right? Germany is similar. Germany is pretty much, it's a lot more forested, yes, but it's mostly plains, mostly plain tiles. And following that, Poland is mostly plain tiles and forest tiles. Same with Russia, mostly plains tiles and forest tiles. Obviously, there are urbans, and urbans are usually harder to take, but the concept of making a catch-all with everything weighted together seems inefficient for the job you want to do, specifically fight in Europe, right? Because it's taking all these mountain tiles, all these hill tiles and mountain tiles, all these hills and mountains, all these hills and mountains, all these hills and mountains, and it's diluting the pool basically, right? And of course, it is the most efficient for every tile in the game. I will not deny that. He had a very interesting synopsis on everything. But at the end of the day, the things that matter to a lot of the majors is plains and forest, right? Because let's say you get bogged down here in the marsh. Well, most players will simply encircle the marsh and kill what's inside the marsh after it's cut off. Some people will push, up to it and fight in the marsh and everything, and that's totally acceptable. But most of the time, Russia's not going to be able to hold it regardless, as long as Germany and the Axis are, playing well. It's really in this general area where Germany gets bogged down, usually on the river line somewhere, right? That's where you see a lot of games kind of stalemate. And then you'll see them sometimes break the river line and run out of supply, and Russia starts getting all of his propaganda and all of his buffs for attrition and stuff like that. And then he's suddenly not taking attrition, so then he can hold, anywhere in this general vicinity, right? And of course, Russia's not going to capitulate without taking a substantial chunk of the country. Either way, the point being is you're mostly going to be breaking plains and forest tiles. And I'm using Russia as an example, but I already went over that pretty much all of these countries, the exclusion of Italy, are fighting in, plains and forest tiles. So why would you not want to do the 10, 15, 27, 41, or 42? Well, as you can see on the bottom of the screen right now, and there's a paradox thing where it shows the combat width and the reinforcement width of everything on their forms. That one might be slightly out of date. They might have updated it, in which case this video is kind of obsolete, but I don't scour the forums every day, right, to see if it is updated. However, it is the example that most people are using in their videos. So anyway, I digress. The whole point of that video was basically telling you, because a lot of countries either can't build 10 wits, or a lot of lobbies are starting to ban 10 wits now, because no one wants, Russia to have 800 divisions and lag the game. The game doesn't perform well enough to have everyone running 10 wits. And if everyone does run 10 wits, then performance suffers and you might not get to play. Anyway, 10 wits are the best for every tile, right? And then 15 wits come in at a close second. So we're going to look at a 15 wit that a lot of people are using. Obviously support changes, right? Pretty much everyone always has like engineers and recons, and you'll a lot of the time see like AA or something like that, but that is country specific, so I'm not going to speak on that too much. Because if you have a dominating presence in the air and you're demolishing them and you have green air everywhere, there's not really much of a point to put more of your industry into AA guns for all your divisions. So I'm going to leave the support equipment mostly out of it. I'm going to touch on it really quickly now just so it's out of the way. On your forest units and your plains units, if you can, light tanks with the flamethrower are fantastic. Light tanks take so little production to make. I'll show you quickly here. We'll do it on the I guess improved. We'll just do the improved light tank, right? And this is one step above of what everyone's gonna have, right? This is all the 1940 tech. And basically all you're really gonna do is throw on a flamer, and if the lobby allows, most lobbies have been banning dozer blades, you might throw on a dozer blade. But even that, like honestly, who cares, right? It's going in an infantry unit. It doesn't have to have a max speed, right? It's faster than the infantry. What's it matter? And it's 6 production cost. So you can crap these out for so little. So little, it's crazy. So these are fantastic, first of all. I would definitely think about putting them in your... and you can obviously edit them, make them better if you want. I personally would just do the cheapest possible so that you can have them as many units as possible. Because the big thing here is on forests, you get a attack bonus, right? It's obviously 15% with that flame company. Obviously, these are lowering it down to 12.2, but because it's an average of the whole unit again. But if you run a flame tank and a motorized recon, you're basically going to have a bonus to movement and a bonus to attack on every single tile in the game. The only ones that you don't get a bonus of attack on are desert and yeah, that's it. I mean, rivers you actually get a bonus too. I was thinking rivers, river and plains. So desert and plains you don't get a bonus on, right? You might think this is redundant because I'm talking about changing the mindset from a catch-all to tailoring them to plains and forests. Because obviously no one really, if you're not co-oping, has the micro sufficient to attack, only forest tiles with their forest units and only plains tiles with plains units. People just, they won't keep up with that. They have 10,000 other things on their mind. But at the end of the day, 15 width has been shown a lot lately, and as the air quote, like meta, right? The catch-all meta. And it is very good. It has, very few penalties for that. Downside to it is it doesn't have as much staying power or as much pushing power as you might need. Specifically pushing. Defending, infantry is good at anyway, right? And so it might not have the pushing power that you need. And, you might have that situation where your organization drops off all at once when you're defending, and then your 6 other divisions sitting behind it get reinforced memed off the tile. The way I've kind of come up to solve this, right, is you either bump up to the 27 because they have a bit more staying power. Typically, they'll last long enough that you can get a reinforce in, that kind of thing, and they're much better at pushing than the 15s, just by the nature of being a bigger division. Downside is these don't fit perfectly into a plains and forest tile. Both of these, as much as they're great on average, I really try and tailor my division specifically to plains and forests in Europe. And as you can see in the bottom of the video, basically there's 2 camps I like to break it into. Do I want to focus on combat width specifically, or do I want to focus on reinforcement width specifically? I tend to focus on reinforcement width simply because if it fits in nice and perfectly, the chances of me getting reinforced memed and, having this game breaking, oh no, I lost the river and now it's all over, they're just going to push through me or kill me, or, for example, I'm defending against naval invasion and I get reinforced memed in Italy or something and my troops get pushed off, or, whatever it might be, right? I tend to like to go more of the reinforcement width path. My divisions are slightly weaker, obviously, so if you're only planning on attacking, I would probably go with the combat width doctrine or path here, however you want to word it, which would be 28th width. And as you can see, I did the math for it all, right? And so with the combat width of 90 in plains and 84 in forests, a 21 width you can fit 4.28 or 4 in, and then a 28 you can fit in 3.21 or 3. Basically, the whole point being is you want to get as close to a round number as possible. And the 28 width is slightly closer to those round numbers. Therefore, it wins in the combat width doctrine. Here's a 28 width division for an example. You can throw in whatever you want here. I personally would probably run the 2 artillery You can play with it. You can run, different things like AA if you need and such like that, right? For example, if you really wanted to keep the 28 width and you're having a hard time with air, you can just go in infantry and you can go AA and you're still at 28 width, right? And you still have your artillery and you still have your AA. It'll give you a little nice extra bit of piercing and everything, as you can see. So that depends on what you want to do with the division, right? You lose soft attack, and most rushes are going roach Russia, so soft attack's pretty important. Pushing back infantry is pretty important these days. And roach Russia, for anyone who's new who doesn't know, is basically infantry and air Russia. They neglect their tanks until they have stalled the Germans out, and it's basically already a foregone conclusion. And then some of them spit out tanks at that point just to put the nail in the coffin. Others just stick to the strategy and, basically wait for Germany to stall out and no longer be able to push them. And most people call GG at that point because, they're getting D-Dayed and 9 other things at that time. So if you want to have the maximum amount of divisions in with the lowest penalty, I would probably go for 28 width on these. It's just an average of them. Obviously, you're still going to have a penalty no matter what you do, unless you specifically make the division for plains or forests. I'm trying to do both. The other reason why I don't necessarily like the 28 width is, as you may have seen in the video with feedback, the number 28 right after 27 has a very hard, sharp drop, and they get a pretty big combat penalty modifier for being over combat width and stuff. So I tend to stay away from this one, but if you really want the extra pushing power, you can do this. I've been liking a 21 width, which is just a bunch of infantry and 1 artillery, right? You can obviously do other things like throw in another infantry and an AA if you need that instead. Let me find it. AA. You can take out, 2 infantry, throw in an artillery, and then have a second AA or an AT or something like that, right? Play with them how you want, right? We're just talking about combat width specifically in this video. This is the one I've typically been using with support companies, obviously. And the reason why is the reinforcement width of plains is 45, and in forest it's 42. So if you take 21 or 28 into it, the 21 gets 2.14 and 2. Obviously, it fits perfectly into one of them, being 42. And the 28th width gets a 1.6 and a 1.5. So you're getting a pretty big reinforcement penalty for both of those on the reinforcement, which is why I tend to like the 21s. The 21s have much better reinforcement width, whole numbers, and they're not getting too big of a combat width penalty, right? Like the difference being for the combat width is between a 3.21 and a 4.28, right? So it's only 0.7 difference of a penalty. Granted, some people might be like, well, I'm attacking, I prefer combat width more. But anyway, I like the school of the 21 personally, and the stats aren't bad for a 21. They're pretty good. You have not bad stats on it at all. Looking at the 15 width, obviously your soft attack hurts a lot here. Your org goes down. I mean, all these core stats here are just so much lower than on a 21 width. Which, as much as 15 width is nice because you can put out more of them, like I said, they just don't have the pushing power. They don't, they can still get reinforced meme depending on what tile you're on. And the whole point of this is to basically tailor your army for Europe. And I've noticed the 21 width does a great job at that. You can also go with the 27 width. I've been playing around with the 27 width a bit lately, but the change in stats between a 27 width and a 21 width isn't that big of a difference, right? So like It is noticeable, but it's not like a 15 width to a 21 width, right? You don't feel this massive drop in power. And because of this, I would say that the 21 widths are a great shout, and I think some people should try them out. And, it does show on the chart a small drop after the 20 width when you go to 21, and you'll get more penalties on average. But that's talking about all the tiles in the games, remember. And it really just matters what you want more. Do you want combat width or do you want reinforcement width? And I've personally gone down the school of reinforcement width, and I've had good some good games with it so far. And the other thing too is not to get in this trap of only pumping out these 15 widths, 21 widths, these 28 widths, these 27 widths, whatever you want, right? I would make at least a couple divisions that are tailored for pushing against them, right? With a combat width on forest being 84, 242 widths can attack it and have no penalties. Granted, once they break from the battle, they're not going to be able to reinforce very easily or well, but they will have the most oomph when being put into a battle on specifically forests, right? So I would have a couple of those divisions around, and some people save those to be their armored divisions. Some people make a ton of artillery and get a ton of soft attack on infantry, or some people throw in specifically like right here. You could do it with like Marines, and have a bunch of Marines with a ton of soft attack, and have them push into the forest here over the river, and you'll fit into the combat perfectly. You'll get all the bonuses of attacking a forest with a flame tank. You'll get all the bonuses of attacking with Marines. So, normal infantry defending this tile will be very hard pressed to stop you from breaking these two tiles. Or this tile, it doesn't matter what you do there. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's my first Hearts of Iron 4 video. I do some Hearts of Iron 4 streaming on Twitch if you want to check it out. And I'll probably do some more Hearts of Iron videos in the future. Maybe look at tank templates, look at stuff like that. But this one was just an infantry template one, and we're talking plains and forests specifically. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys completely disagree with me and think I'm a monkey, let me know why. I always like to get better at the game, and I don't ever want to be a burden for my team. So if you have reasons why you think that the combat wit should be something different, or you shouldn't care about reinforcement width or anything like that, then let me know. I'll have some pop-ups in the video of Feedback Gaming's findings, or the PDF that was sent to him, findings, and then also the picture I got from the Paradox forums talking about combat width and reinforcement width. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was kind of a run-on and it wasn't too well organized. I'm going to try and make that better in the future, and if I remake this video, I'll probably do a script with it. But I wanted it to be a bit more organic and just show you guys the divisions and the differences between them, and why the meta isn't always what you want to do. Just as a closing thought, the 10 widths are amazing, but let's say you're playing Italy, for example, right? Typically, you're forced into building a lot of things as Italy and researching. Sometimes if you don't have a dedicated miner to research fighters and stuff for the Axis, you could even be, forced into wasting research slots on that and such. Depends on a game-by-game basis. However, Italy doesn't have that insane of an industry. It can't throw, a bunch of factories on support equipment so that it can run 5 supports with 10 widths and have hundreds of divisions. It's just not going to happen. Same with France. France is not going to be strong enough to do that by the time Germany comes knocking. There are countries that can do it. Germany definitely can. The Soviet Union definitely can. The US definitely can. But the other thing too is, you got to look at them and see what they're doing. They might be amazing at defending, but they're not the best at attacking. So, just some food for thought. And I know that the Hearts of Iron 4 community is one of the ones that definitely is very meta driven, and they'll look at your divisions and sometimes be like, why are you building that? Why aren't you building the meta or whatever? Name YouTuber's video that they watched that morning. And this video is basically just kind of like a reply, not only to feedback, and hopefully, if he watches it, he might make a reply to it or something like that, but also to all those people who follow the meta religiously, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of the times the meta of divisions are just simply not viable for miners. For example, Spain. Spain used to do tank volunteers, and now the ramp up time after the Spanish Civil War is pretty slow. So if you're playing vanilla and you're not playing a mod that speeds up the game, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to put out a decent number of medium tanks, much less heavy tanks, by the time, your volunteers are going to be needed in Russia. But I'm kind of drowning on at this point. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. If you really enjoyed it, maybe hit a sub or come check me out on Twitch or whatever. And I hope you guys all enjoy your day, evening, whatever it might be. Peace.